Hi, now I am again continuing the biology class. And in biology class, I'm going to introduce the genetics chapter and molecular biology. So, in genetics, I will be mostly discussing the basics of genetics. So, what is genetics? Genetics is basically where you study for the inheritance. So, inheritance, as we observe it, offspring resemble parents in broad terms. For example, that is like same species. Offspring often share more similarities with the parents that with non-related individuals, but they are not identical to either parent or to their siblings, except in the case of identical twins. What is the mechanism that ensures both this continuity of inheritance and the variation? Genetics aims to answer the question. All these questions genetics could answer. Genetics is the scientific study of genes, heredity, and how traits are passed from parents to offspring. It explores how the biological information containing DNA influences an individual's characteristics, body functions, and development. Key concepts include genes, genotypes, phenotypes, and modern genetics builds on the individual, like foundational work by given by Gregor Mendel. So, and it encompasses fields like genomics, which studies an entire organism's genetic material. So, now as we understand the scientific study of heredity, that is genetics. So, offspring resemble parents in broad terms. And genetics is basically the scientific study of genes, DNA, genotype, phenotype, and genomics in modern days genomics. Now, what are the key aspects of genetics which you need to know? Genes and DNA. Genes are the segments of DNA that provide the instructions for making proteins or functional RNA molecules. These proteins are crucial for a body's structure, function, and thus influence an individual's traits and health. Heredity, this refers to the transmission of traits such as eye color or susceptibility to certain diseases from one generation to the next. What is genome? An organism's entire set of genetic material, including both coding, that is genes, and non-coding DNA regions. What are phenotypes? And what are the genotypes? So you need to also know the basic definition of genotype, which is the specific combination of genes in individual processes. Now, phenotype is the resulting observation or observable trait, height, blood type, which is a complex interplay between the genotype and the environmental factors. Now, the historical context, ancient practices, early farmers and animal breeders understood that traits could be passed on and combined through selective breeding, though they lacked the real knowledge of genes and genetics. Mendel's laws in the mid 19th century, Gregor Mendel established the fundamental principles of heredity, laying the groundwork for modern genetics. And modern applications and broader fields are genomics, medical applications, and ethical considerations. In genomics, this related field studies the entire genome of an organism, aiming to understand gene function and interaction. Medical applications, genetic research has led to advances in medical applications like genetic testing and the potential for gene manipulation. What are the ethical considerations? The power of genetic knowledge also raises the significant ethical questions that society must address. Now, the vocabularies which you need to know, like trait, their specific characteristic varying among individuals, that is trait. Now, for example, eye color, then gene, a portion of DNA determining a trait found on the chromosome, and that is gene. Now, for example, the gene for the eye color. Now, next vocabulary, hybrid, the offspring of two parents with different traits. Here, hybrid, then gametes, reproductive cells, that is, sex cells, sperm, and egg. Allele, the form of a gene. Allele, so basically, it is the form of the gene. Allele, the different forms of a gene represented by a letter. For example, here, capital W, then that is for widow's peak. Organisms have two alleles for each trait, one inherited from each parent, like mother and father. Now, WW. Then forms of alleles, dominant alleles, that means which you normally observe. Trait will be expressed with only one copy present. That is dominant allele represented with capital letters here, as you can see. Then recessive allele, trait will only be expressed when no dominant alleles are present. That is recessive allele, and this is represented with lowercase or letters, that is small w, no widow's peak. Now, Gregor Mendel, considered as the father of modern genetics, and he was a monk who experimented with tea plants in the monastery garden. Now, Mendel's conclusions. So they have like inheritance is determined by the factors passed from one generation to next. Now, principle of dominance, some alleles. So this is first principle, inheritance Mendel's law of genetics, that is law of inheritance. Then principle of dominance, some alleles are dominant and others are recessive. Now, after that, Mendel's conclusions are like segregation, law of segregation. A gamete carries only one copy of each gene. Then you can go for this fourth principle of genetics, that is principle of independent assortment of or law of independent assortment. That means genes for different traits segregate independently from one another. And this is what you can see here. Applying Mendel's principle, alleles combination like capital WW or small ww, both alleles are the same, and then it is called homozygous. When you could see such combination like both are in caps or both are in small, then it is called homozygous alleles. Now heterozygous alleles are different. For example, capital letter W and a small letter w, then this is heterozygous. Now genotype, the actual allele combination, what genes say, as you can see, these things are called allele. And then phenotype, the trait observed, like widow's peak. Here, that is phenotype. Now, Punnett square box, which you are normally forming while you are studying the genetics chapter, used to predict the genotypes of offspring when the genotypes of both parents are known. Then you go for Punnett square box. Now, other patterns of inheritance are incomplete dominance. As you can see here, the heterozygous phenotype is somewhere between both homozygous phenotypes. Then another, here you can see pink flower. And then codominance. Here both alleles contribute to the phenotype. Neither allele is dominant. Then it is called codominance. And here you can see in roan capital cattle. Now, multiple alleles, more than two allele possibilities are present. Then here, these examples are representing, and this is for blood group. Then polygenic traits control by more than one gene, and then it is skin color. And next part I will be discussing, that is molecular biology, where I will be discussing the structure of DNA, RNA, and then also we will move on to proteins. So these DNA, RNAs are considered as the basic component or genetic matter, basic genetic material. And then there it comes, replication, transcription, and translation. For example, DNA replication and then transcription. And transcription, that is the formation of mRNAs, and then formation of protein from mRNA, that is translation. And then it comes further more things like the basic details, which is like codons and many more things, how you can consider and understand the molecular biology or basic biology here. So these things I will be discussing next. Thank you very much for today.